Okay, well, for those of you who are here, you'll have the opportunity to hear some of this, but I'll provide the information afterwards as well. Is this a little bit better? Okay. I'll try to stay close to this thing. I tend to wander, so I apologize. So I'm really happy to be here today with you guys. Such a wonderful group of people, and a topic that's very dear to me. Though I wouldn't consider myself a linguist in any way. I don't carry on the languages of my ancestors in any way. But this is sort of my attempt to correct some of those wrongs over time and try to do my part. So just a brief background in how I got here, what I'm doing here. So I started working at Google about just a little over a year ago. One of the first things that I noticed was the passion of the employees, the passion of the people there. And this was something that I found remarkable. And that's something that I kind of felt is important, to have passion about things beyond work. So I saw things like engineers had 20% projects. There were volunteer opportunities, community activities going on regularly. And then we have something called employee resource groups. So the employee resource groups is the idea of a collection of employees who share something in common or some shared belief. So I decided to jump in, and I offered to co-chair the Google American Indian Network. And one of the first things that we did when we got together was, let's just dump everybody's ideas. What are all the things that we want to accomplish as an organization? How do we want to help the community? And we listed all kinds of projects, and here's some samples. And one of the common threads that we found was that many or most of us felt was important was the idea of endangered languages and dying culture, that we wanted to make sure we could see what we can do to reverse that trend, to preserve some of it. And so that's what brings me here today, and I joined the Endangered Languages Project team, which is sort of a group of people throughout Google who wanted to participate in this particular project. So there's a video that can tell you just about everything I can really quickly. I'd like to use it just as an introduction, and then we'll get into all the other aspects of what I'd like to share with you guys today. So let me just go ahead and play it. So I always get really excited when I see this video. I think it's a great introduction to people who may just be interested in languages, for people who may be looking for extra tools, a whole slew of, a large audience, I should say. So part of the presentation that I want to give today, I want to answer three questions for everybody. First is, why is Google involved? And the second is, what is Endangered Languages Project? And I want to describe a little bit about what it is and how it works. And then the third question that often comes when I'm talking with people sort of naturally is, what can I do? How can I use it? So those are the three questions that I want to share. So the first one, again, why the heck is Google involved? And I want to show you our mission statement. So this is something that we try to live very closely. It's to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. And these are important. So let me give you a couple examples. So you might be able to go online and look for a geographic location. But hopefully you might also find directions, maybe history, background, maybe some images. Likewise, you might look up, let's say, a restaurant. And when you're looking that up, you might be able to find menus, ratings, maybe even order your food or grab a place in line while you're there. So this is what we mean about making the information useful. And when we talk about the world's information, we mean all of it. So this is science, history, literature, the media, news, music, all of it. And a key piece of that, we believe, is culture. And that's something that we also want to make sure that we're making the information on cultures available and useful. One of the ways that we've done this so far, these are some recent projects with the World Wonders Project. We teamed up with some large organizations to make some of humanity's most amazing accomplishments available to everybody, anybody at least who has access to the internet. And so the idea is to bring this experience home. And many people may not be able to visit the peaks of Peru or the pyramids. I remember when I was young, we had a family encyclopedia, and when I wanted to learn about the Great Wall of China, I had to go to this encyclopedia, and I had a small paragraph, very brief, and there was no picture. And so that was the extent of my experience. I haven't been to China, and hopefully I'll be able to someday, but maybe not. So this is all about bringing that experience to anybody who has access to the internet. So what we did was basically paired some of our mapping and street view technology with the information and the history and the background from our partners to create this experience in the living room and bring it home to people who may not be able to visit or participate otherwise. Some other projects that we worked on recently was the Art Project, where we teamed up with several art museums and art collections to enable people to view the brush strokes of Van Gogh, or to zoom in very closely and to see the cracks in the statues from the 4th century Greece. And with Nelson Mandela Archive, through documents, personal, family, and other, including photographs and videos, we're enabling people to really learn and get to know an important person beyond what you would learn in a textbook or in a regular library, and to really bring, again, an experience. And then here's some details on these 3 projects that I've just mentioned. So these are very core to our mission at Google. But one thing that these 3 projects have showed us, when we look at some of these numbers, 12 million visitors on the Art Project in the first 6 weeks, 14 minutes average site visit on the Nelson Mandela Archive, and then tons of videos on YouTube and others for the World Wonders. This tells us that other people care, and this tells us that it's not just about our mission, but that people want to know and that people want to access this kind of cultural information. So as I mentioned, the employees at Google were very passionate, and that's something that I've remarked and I continue to remark. So more than just related to our mission, we have a motto that says, "Don't be evil." We take that, to a little bit further to mean don't do good and be good. So it's not just about cultural preservation, though we think that that's core. It's also about looking for opportunities to do good in the community. With some of our flagship products like YouTube, it's helped democratize education access in many parts of the world where not available. It has a nonprofit program to help in raising money and other things. And it's been a key tool with freedom of expression, and we see more and more YouTube being used. And a section of it now actually dedicated to citizen programs or protests or whatever you name it, giving a voice to people who might be repressed otherwise. So we wanted to look for opportunities to, number one, do some good, and number two, preserve culture, because it's important in making information useful. And here's the problem that we wanted to address. Right, 50% or more of the languages spoken today will be gone by the end of the century. That's not new, right? This is not a trend that hasn't existed in the past, but the rate at which it's accelerating is new. And I think everybody here knows that, right? That's why you're here, and you're already involved in the preservation work, and I think that's important. Just like we have a community here today where we can share best practices and talk about what we're doing, we believe that technology and collaboration can help. So what is the Endangered Languages Project? It all started with the universities of Hawaii at Manoa and Michigan, who secured a grant from the National Science Foundation to build a catalog of endangered languages. So there are 7,000 languages, something like that today, right? And maybe 350 of those are spoken on a daily basis. There's a whole slew of languages that are not spoken or being less and less spoken and are being lost. So their job was to build a catalog of these languages, and we saw it as an opportunity to build a digital archive, a central gathering place for information. So we jumped on the project jumped at the opportunity to participate and help fund and contribute some of our technology to this effort. We recognize often that different communities have different strengths, and ours is technology. Ours is not in preservation works per se. So we wanted to contribute where we're strong. So the Endangered Languages Project is actually led and driven by what we call the Governance Council, to which Google is just a member, and we provide technical advice and funding. So again, the two strengths that we thought we would stick to is technology and raising awareness. And these are things that we feel like we've gotten pretty good at doing. But it's not a story about Google. I want to be clear. This is a collaborative effort. We have on the Governance Council members throughout the world. We have more than 50 partners who have contributed to data to launch this site, to get these, I think there's 3,000 languages or so already on the site. And this is some background data, which we'll take a look at in a second, what that means. And we have, organizations continuing to join and upload and add content to the site. And there are people engaging in the site, individuals, organizations, on a daily basis. And it's been really great to see the interest, again, worldwide. So this is something that we all recognize here as an issue and a concern, endangered languages. But this is not the only community in the world concerned. There are many communities, and we think that there are best practices to be shared. So on the day that the site launched, or that the website launched, we made a small blurb on our main site. This is kind of sacred space to Google. We don't usually use it, certainly not for our products. But because of the seriousness of the issue, we thought we would. So we put a small note about endangered languages, which was subsequently seen by millions of people in several countries. We also simultaneously posted on our blog official announcement, which drove millions of people to the website. And it launched or triggered hundreds of press releases and press stories throughout the world, which is really exciting to see how many people became interested when given the opportunity. So, as I mentioned, it's a website. So the Endangered Languages Project is essentially a tool built for the community of experts and preservationists and people like you. A tool that we thought would be state-of-the-art and give you and every individual at home the ability to actually participate in the preservation of their language or their culture. So there's several pieces of the site available, and we'll talk about them in detail. Actually, I'll take you through a walkthrough of the site and how it works. But it gives you an opportunity to learn about language, find resources, find other people working on the same language, or view content such as video, audio, text. Some people are scanning old documents and just preserving them in that way to share. I should mention that the purpose of this tool is really to allow you to share with the world. Right? This isn't probably geared for special or sacred documents, things like that, things that you would keep, special, that you don't want the world to see. This probably isn't the tool. There are other ways of digitizing that information and sharing it with specific people based on permissions, and there's some Google products that could do that. But this tool is really about sharing your language with the world and connecting as a community. So in addition, there's also a knowledge sharing section. I think we've talked about the idea of a community and best practices being important. And I'll take you through some of this, but what it's about is connecting people from various languages so that we can share best practices. As awareness grows, there are a lot more people who want to be involved, who want to help do work on their language, and they don't know where to start. So you might have an idea of the best way to get started. You may have a simple method of editing video or something that you want to show or share. This is a good opportunity to do that. And if you are one of those, like myself, who just wants to sort of get involved, see where I can help, this is a great forum for me. It includes a chat section. It includes places to store video or documents of research or anything else. And it really does sort of, the idea is to create a global community. So just like we're gathered today here, and it's an annual gathering, and we have a chance to chat, we want an online gathering that enables you to connect all year round and an easy way to find each other. So let me take you into the site. There's kind of a lot to show you, so let's take a look. So this is what it looks like. This is the launch page, and what you'll find is some basic information. There's some featured languages here, and these change over time. Right now, there's a handful of languages. And then it tells you a little bit about endangered languages, so it's more instructional for those who are just getting involved, some background. So one of the things that I want to show you is this really cool interactive map, which I like to just browse for fun sometimes. And so basically, the first thing you see is a series of dots, right? And this is dots all over the world. And again, I mentioned that there are something like 3,000 languages currently in the system, and we certainly hope to add more. But you'll see that these levels of dots, there's like red to yellow and green. These are the levels of vitality of that language. So this is all based on the research that was done by the universities and the other partners who helped us get launched. So green being at risk, and then all the way down to severely endangered. And you can actually filter, if you wanted, by number of speakers. You could go, you want to see only the languages with lots of speakers, or vice versa, and it actually changes. Or you could just look by category. But let's just leave it on for now. So you can scroll throughout the world, and you can kind of see which which languages have been documented more, which regions are documented more than others. So it's a lot of fun. You can spend some time there if you want. But if you take a look, I'll just give you an example. So let's choose this one. Here's a red dot. If you click on it, it just gives you some general information, right? Here's the language, and this is a link to its website. So each language has its own subsite, and we'll look at one of those in just a minute. And it will show me approximately speakers, how many are known, some videos, what kind of files, how much content is there. Some of these are empty, and I think you'll find those are the opportunities that we really need to catch up on most. One of my favorite examples was one that the LCAT, or the catalog first sort of highlighted was a language, and I can't remember which one it was. I'll have to look it up. But there was a language in Mexico somewhere that only had 2 speakers left. And those 2 speakers got in a quarrel or something, and they wouldn't talk to each other. It just kind of highlights the importance and the need to communicate with each other. I think the purpose of language is communication, so if we're not communicating, we probably should focus on that first. But I just thought that was funny. So let me take you into an actual website, one of the actual languages. So I've just showed you how to sort of scroll over the map and interact with that and have some fun looking up languages. Now I will show you one of the languages. So this is the search feature that I just showed you. You can search for any language. You can search for any word, really. What it does is it searches through the site, anything linked through the site. So it's not just specifically the language page. I think what you'll see here is this says language, so I know this is the language page, and we'll look at it in a moment. But there are also a bunch of samples that came up under the search as well. So you don't necessarily have to go into the website to find documents or anything. You can just sort of find it here. And then you could also filter by what you're looking for. But I want the website, so I'm going to click on that. Now here we are. This is the Cherokee website. So it's got some language metadata, which was sort of this is information really interesting to the real linguists, the deep dark linguists, I like to call them. that really get into the science of this. But it's also interesting, and it gives you like the background of the language and stuff. But if you look on the right here, you have general map gives you kind of a rough location of where the language either originated or spoken. You can also choose from various sources, so there's not just one source of information. Typically, you're not going to get anything different. That gives you some more background. And then it also shows you, at a high level, what's the level of vitality. So here we see that Cherokee is vulnerable, this category, less than 16,000 people speaking. And the general ethnic population, which is, again, based on the research done through these universities. It also gives you on this main site some samples, a link to some samples, a little bit about the language. So that's the summary page, and that's how that works. So you'll notice that across the top here are some sections that get you a little bit deeper into the language. So we have samples and resources. So I want to walk you through those, each one, to just sort of explain what they are, how they work. Now, once the presentation's over, after lunch and today and tomorrow, I'll set up my computer in the back for anybody who wants to take a spin or ask questions, because I realize that a high-level overview of a website is probably not sufficient. But anyway. So if I click on the samples, what I'll find is any samples that have been, that have been added or uploaded by other users. So here there's 6 videos available for Cherokee. If there were more, then these sorting options might be more useful. And then I can also see activity ranking by who submitted the documents, and by the number. So the Museum of Cherokee Indian, obviously, it submitted more documents than anybody else right now. So aside from the videos, then there's also documents. So it's important to note that video recording, I think, is really important when trying to preserve a language, because you can show elders speaking the language or teaching or telling stories and those kinds of things that have multifacets, and there's more culture that can come across. But at the same time, documents are important. And there's a lot of old documents that are photocopied and stored in boxes. And paper, believe it or not, deteriorates over time. And unfortunately, we have a lot of history that's in boxes and is not accessible to everybody. So this is an important place where documents can be scanned and stored for everybody. One thing I also didn't mention on the description page, actually, maybe I did. We'll just go into resources. So similar to the video and audio files and document texts, the site is also linked into Google Books. So one of the projects that Google has been working on forever and will be working on forever is scanning books. There's a lot of books in the world and a lot of information. And when we talked earlier about gathering the world's information and making it useful, this means that we've got to scan a lot of books and put them online because they're not accessible otherwise. And so we're doing this, and we're doing it by millions of pages at a time. And that information is stored in Google Books. So the results are also here tied into Google Books. So any book or document that's been scanned from a public library or something also feeds into this. So anything that, the system will check the word Cherokee in this case and show those books that are available. It doesn't mean that it has to be limited to that. If there are other books that we know of, we can also contribute them. I think it's interesting to note, and I don't know if anybody else has noted this already, but the site is begging for more information. So anywhere that you go, you'll see this: submit a document now, submit something now, add to the archive. 6 videos is what is available on the Cherokee site. It's probably not sufficient, right? If we were all to just leave the room, fast forward 100 years, if that's all that we had, I think that that would be a big loss. And I think we can all agree on that. So the idea is contribute anything that we have. Some of us even have. I recently talked to, I think it was a Native American university, and they had done a project where they went out and they actually filmed some elders telling stories and sharing stories. It took them, I think, all summer, a little bit of funding, mainly a lot of time. And then they took these recordings and they put them on the shelf because they didn't have anywhere else to put them. So it's wonderful. Somebody someday might be able to access those. And who knows if the files are even convertible by then, honestly. So one thing we wanted to do, and we encouraged them, let's get this information online. Let's make it available, store it there, so that the world can access it and see it, so that future generations can see it. So submitting a document, submitting content is important. And you all have knowledge to share. And this is a way that you can do it. Then the activity section. So that's how resources work. You can kind of see some of this is hopefully self-explanatory, though you might not figure it out from just digging through the site. The activity section shows me who's done what. So what information has come from where. I can see that recently this was updated, and this was actually started June. It wasn't that recent. But I can also see that no one's updated or added any content since June. And then the ranking again here of who's submitted the most or the least. Bibliography is exactly what it says it is. Any cites from the site, anybody who cites works in a paper, document, a video, they have the opportunity to cite it here as well. And then you'll see this unsubscribe button. This is just a button. There's nothing behind it. I've clicked subscribe because I want to know when something is added to the Cherokee language. It's important to me. There are other languages I might have subscribed to that are maybe just interesting as well, not from a heritage standpoint, but maybe they're just interesting. Or maybe there's somebody I'm working with on another language, and I want to see what they're up to. So you have this feature, and I will take you. So this is in general how the site is designed to work. There's an overall site, and then there's subsites for every language with their tabs across. So I've just showed you that. Now I'll show you the dashboard, which is more personal. This shows me just what I'm tracking. So you see I've got 2 languages that I'm tracking, and it also shows the activity. This is not, a terribly difficult page. It's really just for me to just remember what I'm looking at. If I wanted to just jump off from where I left off, I could go in here and check. So it's really important to note, we talked about before, this community idea. So I want to also show you the knowledge sharing section. So again, with more and more awareness growing, with communities starting to really get some work going to reverse the trend of losing the culture and the language involved, it's really important that we share some of this knowledge. There's a lot of people new to the work, a whole new generation rising who knows exactly what they want to do with computers, but they don't know where to start. So this is an opportunity to sort of just be part of the community and share what you've learned, what techniques are working and such like that. So this is broken up into several tabs, and I want to just note those briefly. Language documentation, language learning, technology, personal statements, which is can also be powerful for awareness and other things, and funding. So these are basically forums. Each one of them is a subcategory. So aside from, you'll have across the top several videos that people have put together, whether they're tutorials or maybe they were the results of a study or something that's gone out. But also, you have the knowledge-based documentation here from other research and such, which you can add to. And then there's a forum. So there's a series of topics and categories of conversations, and you can see where, if you came to this site looking for some knowledge or looking to share, you might find one of these conversations interesting, click in, and you can drill and see the post and see who did it. And then you'd have the ability to reach out to this person. Likewise, so it's basically a group check. And likewise, language learning works in the same way. So the functionality of the site is not changing by the tab. It's really the topic and what you're looking at. And then technology is really geared towards how to use stuff. So one good example that I saw in here was, I think somebody put a video editing tutorial. What does that have to do with endangered languages? Well, part of documenting and preserving the language is getting some video content. And if you don't know how to do that, you might not even know where to start. So this might be a good place where somebody would put a tutorial on take a basic camera or the camera on your phone, and here's some easy steps where you can get started. Or more advanced, you could say, here's how to make a documentary, or here's one that I've made, here's the suite of tools that I used, whatever. Because there's somebody out there who's going to find that useful. And also, if you're trying to learn, it's a great place to go. So also with this, there's also a series of conversations going on that you can join or participate as you wish. The personal statement section is really interesting. I actually want to share one just as an example. So these are individuals. Let's take a look at West Studi. This might be a good one. So that's just a small sample of the type of video that might be added there. And this is all open to anybody who has an account. And I'll show you how to contribute documents and do that in a second. And then the last is funding. It's a great forum. I think this particular community, there are no articles shared, for example, not a whole lot of information. People haven't used this one yet. A couple posts. This is something where you might see if there's grants available that you know about, post it, share it. If there's grants you're looking for, go ahead in there. And the whole purpose of this tab is funding or helping others learn how they can get funded for their projects as needed. But I would also note that not all preservation work requires funding. Right? There's a lot of work that individuals can do to contribute to the preservation and the sharing of their language. Anywhere in this site, an individual can sign in. You can also attach your login. You see that I'm actually logged in already, so I can't show you how to log in. If you have a Gmail or a Google account, you would just quickly click on the sign in, and it will just connect. It sort of pulls straight from your information. If not, that's okay too. We want everybody to use the site. So there's a short registration process. Before you can post comments or upload content, the idea is that you have a profile so that others could reach out to you and share with you. So if you're tracking, let me just share. Let's go back up here. So one of the first things I did, my family comes from two directions, the Shawnee and Cherokee, which is not that far apart actually. So the first thing I did was check out Shawnee. Okay, well let's see what's out there. And what I found was nothing. There's no information available. There are no documents uploaded. There's less than 100 speakers left. So I thought, I've got to change that. There's got to be something that I can do. Well, as an individual, I can upload content. But also, if there's an organization that you're a part of, it's possible to connect your login ID to that organization. And it's also important to note that, let's take a look at the section for organizations, because organizations can also contribute as part of a partnership. There's a lot of information with groups that have done work already. Maybe there was a project 5 years ago to document a language, and that information exists on a database that's not accessible by the internet. There might be a lot of rich content out there that's just not available to the public. So the idea is for these groups to partner to provide their information, to link right through so that they can share. So this group I'm referring to is the Alliance for Linguistic Diversity. You see that there's a large list of members already on this list who are contributing and actively participating in the collection of information. The list is long, but it's not long enough. This is not 7,000. I don't see 7,000 organizations for different languages, but there are 7,000 languages. So it's really important that we all get involved. Let me see what else is fun to show on the site. Let's take a look at a sample video. Let's go to Argonese. So you can get a feel for some of the types of videos. These aren't always professional. These aren't always collegiate level things. This can be fun as well. So take something simple like a ceremonial dance. Give us a second while it catches up. But you can see that there are other things, personal videos from elders in some cases in similar communities, or just personal videos where people are sharing some of the cultural stuff behind the language, maybe the origin. I'll have to show this to you later. I might have an internet connection issue. So this is the website, and it's powerful in that it provides a storage place for the whole world to access. And that's important because there's been work in the past to document languages. There's been efforts to gather information, but the ability to share that has been limited. So this is one of the big things that Google wanted to participate in, something that could change that a little bit. A forum for the whole world to go and start documenting so that we can build a collection so we're not constantly doing the same work over and over again. Some of the things that we've been excited about, we're seeing creative uses of technology beyond just the site. One of the things that we found very inspiring is, I'm not sure how many of you have seen the Daybreak Warrior. This guy puts together a lot of great videos on Navajo. Word of the day is particularly interesting. Look at the number of views that he has. It's up in the top right corner. 1.5 million views, 1,600 subscribers. And we think that that's pretty impressive, right? And one of the things that we traffic is, or that we check is YouTube traffic. What are people interested in? What are the trends? Typically you see funny videos, right? Things that are entertaining for a moment. But it's really interesting to see how many people want to see and view content. If I were to show you the Navajo page, I don't think we would find 1.5 million speakers. Yet a lot of people have viewed this particular set of videos. I want to share with you just one of them so you can get an idea of what are some of the things that people are doing. And we find it really interesting. So that's probably a bad example. Thanks, Daybreak Warrior. I should have told him I was going to do this. Let's go to some of the favorite. Let's see. We don't advocate this. It is, actually. I don't know if there's any education piece behind it beyond, but here's one I watched just the other day. A little bit more appropriate.
Good evening, and welcome to Daybreak Warriors Navajo Word Today. Earlier today was Popcorn Lovers Day. In commemoration of that, today's Navajo word of the day is popcorn. So to say popcorn in Navajo, you say na dan del choshe, na dan del choshe, popcorn. Now how the word breaks down is na dan means corn, del choshe basically describes something that pops. Del choshe, pops. and that's where we get the word from. Similarly, we get the word soda pop from the same kind of concept. The Navajo word for soda pop is twadilchwashe. Twadilchwashe. Twa means water. Dilchwashe means it pops. So that's where you get the Navajo word for soda pop. Twadilchwashe. Twadilchwashe. The water that pops or the water that fizzles.
So I won't go any further, but it's really exciting to see how people are using technology. Catch up to the rest of my presentation. How they're using the technology of something simple like YouTube. That was shot with a regular laptop. Right? Most laptops come with a camera built into them now. That wasn't a fancy lab. He didn't have, recording studio. He put that together on his own, and he has a lot of videos like that, and people are interested. That concept, word of the day, these kinds of uses of technology are intriguing to us. So the site, as you saw, is not done. We're planning very soon some more upgrades to the site, and maybe incorporating ideas like this, word of the day or language of the day, things that can help spread awareness but also share something simple like the Daybreak Warriors videos. Anybody can do what he just did, but collected over time, enough of those videos might be able to produce enough content to actually keep the language at least alive in some form, whereas otherwise it might be gone. So we think that it's really important that there are individuals out there using technology with or without us. So we just want to give them a place to put that stuff. So I mentioned the 3 questions earlier. Why is Google involved? What is Endangered Languages Project? And I hope that I've answered at least those questions for you. If not, I'd be happy to take some in a minute. The 3rd question that sort of happens organically, that just on its own, what can I do? How can I use the site? I know there's a lot of ideas. We presented this to some visitors on the Google campus just Friday, and all kinds of ideas are coming to their minds, and concerns. So I know that beyond just being interesting, there are a lot of questions around it. But the first thing is, let's talk about how you can help. What can you do? And the first thing is, this particular group of people in this room contains a lot of knowledge. This is a really special group of people. If we really consider the amount of information that we contain here, experts and preservationists, and the population that you represent, it's pretty impressive. And you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of content probably already. And it's important to go through, sort of take a mental image of the kinds of information that you have. What can I share? What can I do right now? What do I already have that's available that I could share with the world? And what kinds of projects could I work on? What are some things that I think are really important to document now and share? I think you could also, in conjunction with education purposes, most of this site is linked straight into YouTube, and so just like this Daybreak Warrior, that's a 1-minute, 2-minute video that's educational in nature that he can share, and he can contribute as many of those as he wants, linked to them to the site. So sharing your knowledge is important. The next is sharing best practices. I've mentioned this a couple times, guys. There are a lot of people who are just now becoming interested in revitalizing languages. And it's important for the Native community in the United States, but it's also really important for the Aragonese in Spain and the people whose languages aren't even yet on the site. And they don't know where to start. And so it's important that you provide your knowledge, give them access to your experience. Many of you have been working on this kind of work for a long time. And there's a lot of knowledge to be gained. It's not just about the language, it's about the process. What are some best practices? What are some lessons learned? Let's save the next group of people to get involved some of those lessons. Some of those lessons were learned the hard way, and it sure would be nice to learn them the easy way. The other point is having your organization create a profile and join. As mentioned before, there were more than 50 Alliance members. There's a lot more space, right, on the internet. All this data is stored for free, obviously, through the Google servers. And we have a lot of space. Right? And if we were to somehow crowd up that space full of Indigenous and endangered languages material, I would be very happy. And I'm sure I could convince somebody to build more space. So all that can be stored and carried on. And then host an event. What does that mean? So in August, there's a good example of this. And this is not a terribly complicated event, but a group of 20 programmers or so in Mexico City got together and decided to plan this translathon. What they did was they just got together and they translated several documents into Yucatec, which was their native language, Yucatec Maya. And they translated several pages in Wikipedia, and they also translated several documents to contribute to the Endangered Languages Project. Simple. It took them, I think they spent 7 or 8 hours. They had a great time. Not a huge group. It wasn't a huge undertaking. Got a lot of press. And that's important because awareness is important. But, in a matter of hours, they were able to add content for the world to access on their language. And I'm there reading about this language I've never heard of before, which is also interesting. And along with that, telling others about the project. There are many not here in this room that are interested in preserving languages or sharing with the world, and they have to know about it. We spoke recently with one tribe, I think they were out of the Northeast, who had just obtained a grant to catalog some of their language and build a dictionary. And they basically said, we don't even know where to start. We're linguists. We're not computer scientists. And then they found that this site existed. Well, heck, you don't have to build the site yourself. Everybody in the world doesn't have to build their own site. There's one here. They could use then or rededicate the funding to the actual important work of preserving the language and not hiring some technology people to build a site for them. So it's important to tell others. It's important that they know about it. And then give us feedback on the site. There's a link for giving feedback, whether it's enhancements or ways that we can do things better. Or, if you want to post your personal comment to the world, that can be added as well. So I'll be able to take a couple questions in a minute here, but just before I finish, I just want to share a story about myself. So several years back, my family found out that my grandfather was dying of cancer. Now, it wasn't so bad because we had plenty of time. He was 86 years old, lived a good life. We had all had good relationships with him. And there was enough notice so we could adjust to the idea. But after he found out, he became, let's say, reattached or recommitted to his native languages. He grew up on a reservation. He spoke Cherokee and he spoke Shawnee. So he started making trips back to Oklahoma. He'd bring in documents with him, coming home with stuff, going to powwows, all the good stuff, but really trying to obviously reconnect with some of his roots. Now, growing up, I had no influence from my heritage because once he left the reservation, at least during his time, it was not necessarily encouraged to share that outside the reservation. So, outside of the summer moccasins, we didn't really have much connection. So here he is, translating documents, and he's working on reworking the pronunciation in some of our genealogical files for our family, so that the names are pronounced differently than it was documented already. Clarifying data and records for our family and other things. Seemingly pretty committed. And we thought, why? I haven't gone through experience like him, but what changed? After his first visit, he seemed to be really committed. When he went up to the reservation and he found that he was one of, I think I showed you on the website earlier, less than 100 people spoke Shawnee living. That's today. And when he found out that he was such a small minority and that none of the information and knowledge that he had was documented or could be shared, I think he felt a sense of urgency. In the end, he probably shared, let's say 5% or less of the knowledge that he had to share with us. And I'm not a linguist. My brothers aren't linguists. My kids certainly aren't. They're still working on English. So what can I do with this information? Well, now that I have a place to put it and share it with the world, maybe somebody else can do something with it. Or at least, my children can pronounce the names of their ancestors. And that's something I think we should think about. Whether we have the best intentions, if we're not sharing our information, the world may never see it. So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak today. I think that this is an amazing site, a powerful tool, and I hope that everybody is interested. I hope that everybody wants to use it, and I hope that you have questions.